So growing up is interesting, and I don't talk about it a ton because I feel like I get all of the questions on like the pay off debt part. So I actually grew up. So if I hit my fire goals, I'll actually be second generation fire, which a lot of people don't know, which is pretty cool. So I grew up in like very like middle class America in a really small town. And my dad owned his own business. And so him and my mom both worked in it. My mom quit when I was born and to raise me. And then my dad kept going. And then he actually retired and sold his company when I was in first grade. So I literally don't remember my parents working, like hardly at all, which is a really weird experience. And so I don't know where I got like this crazy work ethic and work 24/7 because I didn't grow up in that environment. But they always talked about like, you know, they worked really hard in their business and they intended to like enjoy their retirement and like travel and do all these things. And so they're like, you may not get anything when we retire. We'll just see how it goes. And so they always said like, you have to work. And like, you know, if you want nice things, that like comes from hard work. And so I had a job at 15. They drove me to, I got a, you know, I had a lot of things. Like, I guess when people like hit on the whole like privilege thing, like I had a lot of nice things. Like I got a car, but it was like an old used car. I had no say in it. They're like, it arrived in the driveway and that's what you get. You know, I think it was huge. And like, it was a Monte Carlo back in the day, like at 2007. And it was just a boat. Like, I feel like I could like get through snow that some trucks couldn't get through in Indiana winter. But I mean, I had a very like comfortable, very like normal, I feel like lifestyle because I feel like I was like decently well off in small town Indiana. And then I went to a Big Ten like state school. So I went to Indiana University for college. And then I saw what people like with money actually looked like. And I'm like, Mom, like everyone has Ugg boots. My mom's like, how much are those? We're not buying you like these boots. And now it's like everyone seems to have them. So it was very interesting growing up with like very frugal parents. Like they didn't really spend on like clothes or anything, but we did do like, they did have like houses in Indiana and Florida. So I guess like in retrospect, it was kind of weird, but at the time, like everyone vacationed to Florida in the winter. They had like an ownership piece of it because they were kind of real estate investors, I guess, in a way in that respect. So, but yeah, I just grew up kind of different, I guess I would say, but I knew like working all the time and not having work-life balance would be a big thing for me because I liked always having my parents there and having them at like every school event and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
We definitely had some good role models there because, like, you know, not too many people have parents who are not working at, you know, when you're in the first grade, at least not by choice, right?
Right.
So do you have any memories of maybe like what that did to kind of like shape your mind, or was there any kind of weird things? It's like you look around and everybody else's parents are working. Because like you said, they retired when you're in the first grade, so you really won't have any memory of them working. Or was there any like pushback as you started getting older and you're like 15 working? It's like, Mom, Dad, you don't even work.
Weirdly, no, because they were like, they always talked about like they built their businesses and they were done. My dad was always older, so he's currently like 82. So he's a lot older. And so he's like, I did my time. Like I worked until I was older, you know, like he kind of worked a full career. Like it was a little bit shortened, but nothing crazy. Like by fire standards, he'd be like a very old retiree. So, yeah, he, you know, just kind of enjoyed it, but it never struck me as weird. I've never really thought about it actually. So, but it's weird how that comes up because people are like, oh, that must have shaped you in some way. I'm like, I'm not really sure. I just knew like the type of lifestyle I wanted to have. And I liked the idea of free time and being able to take trips when I wanted to with my kids and doing that kind of stuff. So yeah.
So you start working at 15, you said.
Landscaping.
Did you ever adopt landscaping? Okay.
Landscaping.
All right.
Landscaping and
Respect.
staining decks.
Respect. That's a hustly type of job at 15.
It is. Yeah.
Did you ever kind of adopt the mindset of, it sounds like your parents had to build something up and sell it for a huge profit, kind of like the Silicon Valley startup-y mindset where you're going to, retire with millions once you build up this thing. Was that kind of your ideology, your path as you, moved toward high school and college?
Yeah, I think when I got into college, it was weird. It was weird. I think I first realized it was weird when I got into college and my parents said, like, they paid for my undergrad education, but they said, like, you will do 4 years and you'll be done and you need to find a job where, like we had long talks about finding a job that was employable. And I just watched so many of my friends go to like private schools, and my parents, like, we will not pay for that school. Like, they would let me look at private schools, but my mom would like literally shrieked in like one of these college tours where she's like, please tell me that's like the whole 4 years. The price tag was just outrageous. And I had friends whose parents worked all the time and were really busy, and they were just choosing these colleges and doing, you know, whatever school they wanted because they thought the campus was pretty, or they thought they'd have this, you know, like they'd have a really good connection with their faith, which is also lovely, but also at that price tag, you know, you can do the same kind of anywhere. So I'm just like, I just didn't understand like how people were spending so much on their schooling when that's such a small part of the picture. And so I was really cognizant about like what career path to choose. Like I remember sitting at my computer, like Googling like highest job placement rates, because that was like 2008 was when I graduated high school, and that was like the crisis, and everyone's like, there are no jobs. And I'm like, that's bullshit, because I have to leave college and have a job. So I started Googling like top 10 jobs with career growth, because I'm like, I'll just find something that's growing and pick something off this list. And that's how I kind of narrowed down my career focus, which is interesting. But I think them saying, you might not have anything left, like you have to work for this, and it sounds like you like nice things, so you better find a good one. So they're like, you like shoes, you like, you know, whatever it is that you like in college, and food and eating out, so you better find a good paying job. So that was kind of I guess we had a lot of talks about the type of lifestyle you want and needing to fund it, I guess. And I feel like a lot of my friends wanted the lifestyle, but didn't like chose like elementary education, where they weren't ever going to fund the level of spend they had. And then like, oh crap, I'm really like not satisfied in my teaching job, which I love teachers. I have best friends that is totally where they want to go. But I feel like a lot of people like end up settling into jobs that are like mediocre paying, and their aspirations are a lot higher than what their income supports. And so I was really grateful for always having that conversation with them. So,
And since both your parents worked at like a family-owned business, instead of going to college, was there ever a thought of like, let's dust off that family business? I know we never really talked about what that business was, or just about becoming an entrepreneur in general without the college degree.
It was always the college degree path, like always. My mom was an accountant, but like self-taught, like accounting essentially. And then my dad was an engineer, but self-taught engineer. So he had like an apprenticeship back in the day. And so he did like injection molded car parts and designed like machines. And so I'm like, that's going to be a hard no for me. So I'm like, I definitely like appreciate you guys, but I am not entrepreneur. Like I didn't consider myself an entrepreneur probably until like a few, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, where I just had this like spirit, I guess, where it was really, you just kind of gravitated towards it. But I didn't really think of myself that way for a while, which is interesting because I think it was always there, because my mom's like, you and your dad both thrive in just straight chaos, and it stresses her out because she's like the accounting mindset, and we both like to have 37 irons in the fire at all times. And so I think I did get that piece from it for sure, but I never wanted to go into like the family business. I had to figure out my own. And I was like, crap, I'm really not creative. So that's kind of where index funds came in at first. And then I made my way slowly to real estate, because I'm like, I'm not going to build this like multi-million-dollar business and sell it, because I just feel like I'm not an inventor, but I need to figure out some way to essentially do the same thing. So
if my research is accurate, you ended up getting a degree in genetic counseling. I guess first, just what is that? I've never heard of that career field before.
Yeah, so I have 2 master's degrees. So I did my master's in genetic counseling right after high school, or right after college. And then when I was at a hospital employed, I figured out they would do tuition reimbursement. And so I searched online for MBAs that were the same cost as how much they would reimburse for tuition. And so I ended up doing my MBA for free, which is awesome. So I have my MBA also, and did like self-paced, but again, it's like they give you a deadline and they're like, it's self-paced. Usually it takes 2 years, but you could finish it in 1. And I knew if I finished it in 1, I would be fully paid for. So I like knocked that out and hibernated and didn't do anything else for a year. So anyway, but genetic counseling is essentially you counsel people on kind of their genetic history. So I've done high risk pregnancy before. I've done oncology. Right now I'm doing like rare diseases. So it's like, I feel like oncology is the easiest one to understand. So a lot of people, like if you have family history of breast or colon cancer or some kind of cancer, and you're like, you know, you have a heart condition that runs in your family and you just want to talk to someone about that, I'm that person to talk to be like, what are my risks? What are my chances? How do I prevent this? That kind of thing. So it's a lot of like, hopefully you can do something about it if you have awareness, and do different screenings to hopefully not, you know, have these conditions that are impacting your other relatives. And if you do, then figuring out how to like live with it and get support and all of that stuff. So yeah.
Which, like, obviously this is a, you know, personal finance show and not necessarily just a medical show, but it's very interesting because I've never heard of this kind of career field. Yeah. And you started touching on it there, which is, you know, kind of the what can you do about it? Because that's the first thing that came to my mind is like, what do you genetics are what genetics are. You can't really go back in time and change them. Did you also kind of deal with people who maybe had to make a decision on whether or not they should have children because they may have something they could pass down? Because we talk a lot about, like what legacy we want to leave behind with this in the FIRE movement, and, what kind of like nest egg we leave behind for our children. But that could be like a scary thing, like thinking, what might you hand down to your children that's not a good thing? Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a hard conversation. Usually families are relieved to know the odds are lower than they thought they were going to be. Like, I feel like that's way more common. Like, people tend to imagine like the worst case scenario, but I've definitely had hard conversations where, it is that condition that they hope to not have and their baby has that. I've been in that position before. So, I mean, it's just hard conversations where essentially your job is to come alongside your family and figure out what their values are and kind of appropriately walk them through based on their values. So if they, want to go one route or another, you just kind of take them through that walk and get them support for whatever direction they need and hopefully give them the most information to make the best choice for them. So lots of hard conversations. I think in the pediatric space, it's a little sadder, I think, than oncology and kind of because there's a lot like preventative things you can do in like the cancer field. And there's so many different treatment options nowadays. There's a lot more tools, but some fields are particularly hard days at work. It's, it takes them a lot of like emotional strength, I think, to not take that home some days. So yeah, not to take this totally in a depressing tone, but you're usually like not excited to go see the genetics person though. So unless you're talking about like ancestry testing, and then people have fun with that. But even that's kind of, it's hard to not take a different tone with genetics because usually it's medical conditions people are wanting to see people about. So.
Well, appreciate you sharing. I knew nothing, and I don't think Justin knew anything about genetic counseling, and now us and all of our lovely listeners do.
There you go.
I do want to pull from a quote, and I'll give some context. There's a quote I read on your blog. So genetic counseling, of course, there's hard conversations, but it seems like every day at the office is different. You have a really rewarding job, like you're impacting people's lives directly. This is the quote. Being satisfied in your job is a mindset issue. This is something I read on your website. I'd love for you to comment on that, just expand on what that means, especially as someone, in a role like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think life, I always say like life gives you many options to be bitter about things and just like beats you up. Like things will happen. But I mean, I've just been through like a really hard season in life in general lately. And so I just feel like you can choose to be bitter and down and angry about that situation, or you can like wake up every day and be like, I'm going to do this. And then it's interesting that was my quote because I'm like, I've always loved my job and now I'm in this like terrible corporate job at the moment. And I'm like, and I totally battle with myself every day because I'm like, is this a mindset thing? Like you just have a bad mentality about this job, or is it actually that bad? And so I'm just trying to figure that out because I've seen a lot of people where it's common to complain. I think that's a lot of our culture today is just, everyone hates their job. Hating your job is normal. You need to get out of it is, the only way. And, I think there's a lot to be said about focusing on getting your income up and trying to help yourself out in that respect, where people tend to talk about just saving money kind of in the FIRE movement. They don't really talk about the income side of the equation. And so I've kind of trying to challenge that a little bit myself and get that income up. But, I have landed in what I consider like a borderline toxic kind of work environment now, where I'm getting emails from people like out on PTO and people are working on vacation. And I'm like, okay, this might not totally be a mindset thing. So maybe I need to go back and revise my own quote because I totally believe this. And then I'm like, I am that job that people talk about. But I do think like my hospital jobs, people just get in this mentality and they're just like down and they kind of bring everyone else down. And it's really hard to be the person that comes in and is like excited to be at work every day and to kind of be the person that picks everybody up, or the person that just like, you won't let those conversations bring you down, to kind of disengage from that kind of mentality. Because I think it's pretty rampant in culture today. So I don't know if I totally believe my own quote. 98%, 2% me just needing to stop whining about corporate America.
One thing I'm curious if you've kind of thought about as you've done this introspection is obviously like you're in a different job now. You're in this corporate job now that you're kind of struggling with, finding that happiness in. But it's also a little bit deeper in your journey. And I know for me, like the clearer that finish line becomes, where it's like, oh, I actually could quit my job. the harder it is to like stay in there with that job, the more like you think about like, oh gosh, I just quit, because you know you can. It's like hope can actually be a little dangerous there. I wonder if that's something you've thought about as you've kind of, introspectively thought about being able to find happiness and choosing to be happy. Is it a little dangerous to know that you can retire, because then you kind of dwell on it?
Yeah. I've never thought about that, but kind of, because I truly believe if I just like didn't have this 9-to-5 job, I could totally be like making a huge impact with my like online business and doing like Nerds Guide FI full time. So I'm watching accounts that are, haven't been around as long as mine, and they're just growing exponentially. And some of them are quitting their jobs. And I'm like, I've been around longer. What the heck am I doing with my life? And they're like building these ebooks and courses. And I'm like, if I could just walk away from my day job and just focus on this, could I be doing the same thing and have this like independent lifestyle? Probably. And I think that's like part of the dissatisfaction I'm feeling right now, is I feel like I can't, like I need to do one or the other, it feels like right now, because the day job is just so time consuming. I don't feel like I have enough bandwidth to do the rest, like, and do it as well as I want it to be done. So I think that's definitely part of it, because I'm like, should I just like up and quit this job? But then I remind myself that I'm overpaid and I'm a single income household and I need to lock it up. But I think also I'm not quite where I want to be with real estate, and it's much easier to buy real estate with the W-2 job. So keeping it around for a while, but I had to get the mindset. So I have a business coach, and she's like, you need to stop looking at your job as like a job and think about it as like your investor. Like, this is by far the best investor you have in your business that you think is your priority. And so that like mindset switch has helped a little bit to be like, okay, could I put up with this investor for the next 4 years? Like, that's doable. But again, just getting in your own thought process of, could I just up and quit someday soon? Maybe it'll get harder as I go on.
So not that long ago, I mean, we're talking 5 or 6 years, this wasn't even a reality to you. And you kind of hinted at it earlier, talking about budgeting and kind of discovering this whole world and starting with Ramsey and going down that rabbit hole. But I know that's a really loaded question, and you can kind of take it in any direction that you want, but would love to hear like part of that journey, especially the mindset shift part.
Right. So we just took out a ton of debts. I was married then, or I was just freshly married then. And we just took out a ton of debt together. So we had cars financed, a motorcycle financed, truck and an SUV. I think we were just living like the middle class dream, where you have like a small boat and a motorcycle, like all of it. Like, we had all these toys, I like to call them, and just were totally consumers and overspent our means by far. And so just like reining that in, I feel like I just needed an easy path, because we were almost 100,000 in debt, and we did pay off 118 by the time we were done. Piece of interest and all that fun stuff. But essentially you're just like, oh crap, I have to get out of this. And at that point you kind of need just like an easy button to like trudge yourself out, because you just get into debt so quickly. It's very easy to just sign up for debt, especially when you have a really good credit score. And so I think that's kind of the start of the journey. And then, digging out of that in 2 years, and then kind of coming up for air after you've lived in the scarcity mindset for so long. And you have to kind of rewire your brain, especially when you think about real estate, because Dave Ramsey like beats any creativity out of you, and any desire to like use debt and credit cards are scary, and all debt is scary, and it's really not. And just figuring out like where you belong in the world is something I think was really hard. Like, you feel a little lost after you finish. You're like, oh, I paid off all debt, my life is gonna be amazing now. And I just felt totally like in the middle of a river with no paddle, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. But clearly this is not, like, going back to spending all this money just mindlessly is not the answer. Like, blowing 50% of our income is not going to be what we do now that we're done with debt. So what do we do with the savings rate? So that's kind of...
Could you tactically walk us through a little bit on how you paid that debt off? I mean, was it things like with the cars, did you like fully pay them off, or did you kind of like sell them and get a used car? Like, was it $118,000 worth of cash you had to come up with, or did you offload some things?
So we did a little bit of both. So the first year, I like to say that I just we did Dave Ramsey, but I essentially did Dave Ramsey party of one. So I worked my full-time day job, and then I waitressed every night and paid off my Jeep Grand Cherokee I bought myself, because I was determined that I would be keeping my car, because I'm a car person. And so the idea of selling it was ridiculous, and I just didn't want to do it. And so I gave myself a goal of like paying it off in a year, and I just waitressed all the time. Like, I would drive I would drive on this highway on cruise from my day job to my waitressing job and change clothes on the way, much to my mom's dismay, like driving on the highway, like how I'm still alive, I don't know. But I would like literally, I'm like, if I get pulled over, like someone's gonna be like, ma'am, why don't you have pants on? But yeah, like I waitressed all the time and paid off my Jeep Grand Cherokee I bought. We bought it used, so we bought it air quotes smart, I guess. It was a 2016. It was pretty close to new. And so it was like a year and a half or 2 years old. And then the truck we had, we didn't want to keep. And so we paid that down until it was no longer underwater. And then we traded that in on a more affordable used car. So we actually took out another vehicle payment, but a lesser vehicle payment, about half of that. And then that cleared out a chunk of cash. And then we had another vehicle that wasn't financed and we sold that. So I was convinced, like, the husband then to sell one of his like trucks that he had that was paid off, and that cleared up a chunk of debt also. And so it was a lot of like selling stuff at the end, but a lot of like me just waitressing all the time and then just trying to save up as much as we could. But we definitely weren't like great at it. Like we still took vacations. We still like did a bunch of like life things. Like we still traveled and did some fun stuff along the way. But a lot of it was hustle. A lot of it was like, I think $20,000 or $30,000 came from like selling stuff. So,
well, hey, 118,000 is nothing to scoff at in less than 2 years. That's crazy.
Yeah.
When you do discover the FIRE movement, though, you kind of had Ramsey to figure out how to rein in your spending, how to get out of debt, probably use some of these different budgeting techniques and tactics, and debt snowball or debt avalanche your way out.
Yeah.
But what did the FIRE movement kind of introduce that you were missing before? Was it the notion that you could retire early? Was it side hustling? I guess I'm wondering what that kind of light switch moment was for you.
About halfway through, I was like, okay, well, we've sold all the crap that we can sell, and I literally can't work anymore that I'm currently working without dying. And so what else is next? Because it was kind of a set trajectory from there. Like I could see the plan. This is what, like, I could see, I'm like, okay, in like 8 months, we're going to have this all paid off. So what's next? Because we had about a 50% savings rate then. And I'm like, well, I'm not just going to like waste this. And I just started reading books. And did like the quintessential, like actually it was Scott Trench's Set for Life that I read that I thought was really, really interesting because it's, again, picked on cars, but it talked a lot about more like house hacking and hacking your income and kind of these other areas, because being super frugal didn't appeal to me very much because I'm just not a very frugal person and I just know this about myself. That's kind of why I'm on this, like I'm definitely, it would be the more fat fire camp out of everything. Just because that's kind of what I signed up for in the beginning anyway. And so, that was just not going to be part of the journey. And so, yeah, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is, I think, everyone's book, Millionaire Next Door. And then The Simple Path to Wealth is like the Bible of like index funds. I read that and like, sweet, I know how to invest in index funds. I did that all in all of my accounts, and then I'm done now. And then it was like, okay, well, now what after index funds? Like, I feel like you read The Simple Path to Wealth, you get it. You're like, I believe in this. I'm good with this. I'm good with set and forget. I'm good with 100% stock allocation. And so now what? Because now I still have all this money. I don't want to chuck any more into savings accounts. And so I want something tangible. And real estate was that answer to, I'm bored. How do I do it faster? Which I think is the story of my life. Like, I'm very impatient and it's served me pretty well. So.
Well, since you weren't really trying to do that bare bones, frugal type way to get to FI, which a lot of times that's where people kind of struggle with the adoption, the lifestyle change. Was there anything about this transition that was really difficult, or was it all just fairly kind of straightforward and it just, took your time?
I mean, we definitely hustled. Like, I worked all the time. So, I mean, there were times where, with my 2 degrees, that I would make more waitressing in a week than I would make at my day job, which is kind of embarrassing at the time. And then just focusing on getting income up. I mean, honestly, like, we're somewhat like, I still to this day keep a budget. Like, I still use like every dollar, like Dave Ramsey's budgeting app, and I track my spending. Like, I'm very mindful about my spending, but I tend to overspend every single month. Like, every month I adjust. Every month I'm like, oh shit, did I need another pair of leggings from Lululemon? I did not. But that's like very common in like the FIRE space. Like, people aren't as spendy as probably I am. But I just knew that's kind of me, and I tried to fight it a long time. So I try to kind of like beat that out of myself through Dave Ramsey and like getting really frugal and couponing and shopping only at Aldi and doing different grocery stores. And at some point I'm like, I feel like I'm just fighting my like who I am as a person, and this isn't for me. And I can do it in a way that brings me a lot more joy than constantly feeling like you're at this deficit. Like some people can live in deficit for a really long time. I feel like the entrepreneurial side, like I kind of rebel against it a little bit. Which is why I should be doing something else ambitious with my time.
I think you are pretty ambitious, though. Something I noted when I was just checking out your Instagram in preparation for this conversation was a lot of these properties that you've picked up, maybe we can just pick one in particular, maybe you can choose the one that was most exciting. A lot of them are fixer-uppers, and it looks like you're doing a lot of the work yourself. Like I saw a picture of you with like a drill in your hand, redoing flooring, like all this different stuff. I mean, that's a scary thing, and that's one of the things that probably deters a lot of people from real estate is the physical aspect. Like it's not like an index fund where, you know, someone can't get set on fire or someone can't be the worst tenant in the world. A lot of that stuff is really scary in real estate, and so we can talk about renovations or just getting that first deal or whichever deal you think would be the best example of, oh man, what am I getting myself into?
Let's see. I mean, I'm not super handy, but I've learned some things along the way where I'm like now, like my mom said, like she's like, are you going to tell people that you're like dating, like that you have a tool problem? Like maybe. Because I've kind of become an addict on like doing like little remodel projects. Like I'm really good at painting kitchen cabinets, but it's really time consuming. And so I've gotten handier as I went on, but I was 0% handy. Like my parents hired everything out when I was growing up and they never really did anything themselves. And so kind of the interesting thing for those of you who may not know me is so me and the husband that I had bought 5 properties together, and then we sold all of them in 2021 because we went through a divorce. And so now I'm investing totally by myself, and I want to keep doing real estate, but I'm not handy. Like I'm not about to lay floors. I can paint really well. I can do kitchen cabinets. I can hang some stuff. I'm really handy with like a screw gun. So like blinds, like I can hang blinds. And I can actually do some drywall repair. But beyond that, like I'm not about to like install a new garbage disposal or fix like my own toilet or anything. So I've been having to build systems out. And I feel like I learned this mostly from Paula Pant, actually, because she was the first one that talked about. So that's kind of really when I got into real estate and thought, actually, I'm going to give this a go, was from Paula, because she's not handy. She invests out of state and she doesn't work on them herself. And as someone who used to be 0% handy, but is like acquired skills through like sheer luck. I just was really inspired by her, like going out like fearlessly and going after properties without having this handiness. And so what I really learned is it makes you build a business and it makes you build systems to not work on it. So I have a plumbing guy, I have an electric guy, I have my HVAC contractors. Like I have people now to do all these roles. And so my goal is to not ever paint a house again right now, because I've painted about 6 of them and I'm kind of done. Because I've painted like the full interior of several houses and you just get a little burnout. So so I post like flooring pictures and before and afters, but now I'm no longer doing any of that myself. So it's a little spendier. Because my ex-husband was really talented at remodeling. And so he would just like slay these renovations, but it was never done as fast as I wanted to go. So the benefit right now is I'm getting like remodels done in 2 weeks with my amazing contractor team, because a crew of guys comes in and like knocks it out. The downside is it costs more for the speed. So there's pros and cons to both. But I think in order to like scale up in the next few years, I'll be grateful that I contract everything out. So that's kind of so I guess for people that are afraid, like, I don't know, like if you have your own house, you call people if you need things done. And so you're just kind of like 10xing that in a way when you start buying real estate. It's like, okay, now I have 2 toilets to repair, but I can still use the same plumber. And you can find those people in other markets. Like you have Yellow Pages, you have Google, you have websites. Like I could do that out of state too. Like you just like try a plumber, like even locally, I can try a plumber. They sound great online and they don't show up. And you're like, what the hell, buddy? You sounded great online. But I mean, you're going to find that whether you're in state or out of state. So I think a lot of it is just like self-limiting beliefs, which I totally have as well, but I'm working on them, where, you can solve real estate's a giant like problem solving puzzle to do, is what I've kind of figured out. You just need to be able to find people that can fix the things you don't know how to fix. So
But you talked about having the 5 properties, but then selling them all in 2021. And we've seen a lot of that where a lot of people are offloading properties this time or, here in 2021 because values have risen so much.
Yeah.
But then you're making some comments about, now I'm getting these renovations done quickly. So it sounds like have you purchased some in 2021 and what's that been like?
Yeah. So previously with the properties, we mostly use conventional mortgages to buy them. And then in 2020, I bought my house hacks. I'm house hacking right now. And I bought that with a private money lender. And then in the spring of 2021, I refinanced that into my personal name. So like I currently own my house hack. And then I bought a duplex with private money. So the same private money lender, I got them to lend on the duplex. So now I have my basement rental unit from my house hack and then this duplex. And then I have an offer in on another one that's an accepted offer. So I'm under contract for a second duplex that I'm going to buy hopefully, in December, and then I'll have, depends how you calculate it. Like, I feel like I technically have 5 doors. Like I'll have 5 tenants, but some people say 6 doors and count their own house hack unit because I do plan to move out of this house eventually and buy another one. So I either have 5 or 6 units by the end of 2021 after having 0 for a minute. So it's very exciting. So, yeah.
So I think an interesting spin that you have on not only real estate, but financial independence, you could take this question in either direction, but your blog, your brand is Nerd's Guide to Fi. And so you're really numbers driven. I know you have like an Excel spreadsheet that you sell. Yeah. I've seen a bunch of your Excel spreadsheets. Very impressive, by the way. But what are some of the numbers or just some of the calculations that people are often overlooking? And again, this could be in real estate or financial independence or elsewhere.
Yeah, I think newbies always are like, my mortgage covers the rent, so I'm good. And that's like a terrible way to run numbers in real estate. So just like that mentality is, they'll be like, okay, mortgage is $1,000, rent's $1,200, my cash flow is $200. And you're like, no, no, you're cash flow negative. I know nothing else, but I just know you're not making money. And so I think just taking time to learn how to run the numbers. I learned a lot of what I do now based on like Coach Carson. I think he does a really good job of teaching it for anyone that wants to check him out. If you want a spreadsheet, it's kind of a knockoff between what Coach Carson does and what the Bigger Pockets calculators do, honestly, because I'm cheap and refuse to pay for the pro Bigger Pockets membership. So a little frugal in there. Like I don't like to pay for, like I just will build my own spreadsheets and things out. But anyway, so I think the big thing is I still always look at the 1% rule to just see like, is 1% of, the cost of the property and the renovation of the property going to be your rent amount, like 1% of that. Just as a quick rule of thumb, because you probably are cash flowing if that's the case. And then I have a full spreadsheet I run under, and you set aside a lot of money for costs that people don't think about. They just worry about mortgage. You have taxes and insurance, which I think people usually figure out. You have mortgage, taxes, and insurance, but they forget about the other stuff like vacancy, which I usually do about 5%. Management, which is, you can check your area, but mine's like 8 to 10% in our area. Usually 10 is standard for if you hire a property manager. And then doing your CapEx, which is about 5%, which is capital expenditures, which is going to be like your big high dollar items. Like, do you need a new roof? Do you need a new furnace? Do you need a new water heater? So all of your big money spend items, you set aside a little bit every month to someday replace your roof. Because you don't want to be the landlord that's like, oh crap, I need a new roof and I don't have any money for that. You want to be like saving for these big items over time. And I have a whole spreadsheet that calculates it based on the age of each item too, which is kind of fun. So you can actually see if you're accurately setting aside money for CapEx, but then people just throw a percentage at it and stick it at 5%. But I actually have an advanced CapEx thing I made myself where you enter if the furnace is from 2020, you need to set aside a lot less money than if the furnace was from 1980. So very different furnace amounts that you need to be setting aside. And so you can kind of roughly calculate from there. And then just maintenance of the property, about 10%. So essentially 30% costs is just set aside in money saving for when things go wrong or when vacancy comes up or essentially life. Like you own properties, stuff breaks. That's what happens. I think just signing up for that in the beginning, but those key expenses will be your big thing to get your cash flow numbers figured out. But I mostly just pay attention to cash flow numbers. I do know my cap rate now, but that's just because I've been investing in the same area for a while. So now I know what a good cap rate is, but it's very market specific. So a lot of people don't put a lot of value in that, but I think it's because it's hard to teach. people have a hard time understanding a cap rate, and it's like very local because in my area I can get like an 8 to 10% cap in a good neighborhood and don't have like shootings happening. But in other cities that would be impossible to find a 10% cap rate without someone getting like shot next door. And so people have a hesitancy to really talk about like what kind of common cap rates they're getting. But I think like Coach Carson and Paula Pant will talk about what they get on theirs, which is helpful. So, you know, I don't love cash on cash return. It's on the spreadsheet that I have, but I check it just for funsies. But it's kind of ridiculous because I tend to buy my houses in any way possible to make the deal happen, whether that's private money. And I usually fund 100% of the deal with private money. So then my cash on cash return is like infinite, right? Like I just bought a house with no money, YOLO. And so my cash on cash return is phenomenal. And then I usually refi after a while, and then it looks terrible because I pulled my money back out of it. So I don't put a lot of weight on that because it just looks better depending on how you leverage it. So yeah. That's my take on numbers. I guess I could run through a deal with you. I kind of dodged that question earlier unintentionally. So I realized
that's
that
something
down.
you wanted. Is that something you want to do? To run through a specific deal?
We can. It's been a
If you got the numbers offhand, then let's do it.
Whew. All right. I guess I can pull them up.
Impress
too.
us. What's the best deal so far?
Oh, my best deal I found on Facebook Marketplace by far.
Oh.
Actually, my best 2 deals I've ever found have been on Facebook. So just like on Facebook Marketplace, like people listing, I have a property for sale. So there's really been 2 of them. So one of them is a land deal. So we bought 22 acres for $110,000. And that was so roughly, I don't know, math, tell you what. So we bought 110,000 was 22 acres, if I can do this. And then we sold, and eventually we sold that property and we doubled our money on that. So I think we had like a 97% return. Like we sold it for like 205 or 208, I think is what we finally sold that for when we sold it. So, and we only bought that in 2019. So essentially we just like doubled our money and flipped a piece of land and didn't really mean to do that. Like that was kind of a buy and hold kind of like investment, like long term. We'll figure out something to do with it later, but it's such a good deal on land and land's really going up in our area. So that was probably my best purchase ever, but the numbers aren't very exciting. It's not a rental property. But the rental property
let's do it
we bought,
with real numbers.
Yeah, okay. So bought a rental property off of Facebook again. It was $64,000. And so we ended up using a portfolio loan on this one. And so this is kind of another niche I talk about a lot. So essentially we had 2 other properties and we had a little bit of equity in each of them from doing remodels and getting rents up. And so we talked to a small local lender that would do portfolio loans, which are a type of commercial loan for people that don't know that. And so, and at first people think commercial loans are scary or you can't do them on single family homes, but essentially you're doing it in the name of your business. And so since we had 2 years of tax returns, which is why I always tell people like make your LLC early because someday you may need your LLC to have established tax documents. And so this is why, because I accidentally had 2 years of tax documents and could actually leverage our business credit. And so essentially we went with the portfolio loan lender and they said if we refinanced all 3 or we financed the $64,000 house and we refied the 2 with them, they would bundle the 3 together in one loan and they just needed an 80% down loan to value on all 3. And so we're able to tap the equity in the 2 that we had built up a little bit to actually purchase the 3rd one. And so we had to put like, I think $13,000 into that deal to buy the $64,000 house. And so it essentially cut how much down payment we needed in about half. And so we were able to refi all of them on like a fixed, I think it was a 5-in-1 arm, which adjusted like every 5 years for 20 years. But which I didn't love, but at the time I'm like, I just want to buy this house and I don't have money. So here we go. Let's figure it out. That's how you know you've gone to the dark side of real estate. And so, yeah, so $64,000, bought it for $13,000 roughly of our own money out of pocket. And then it rented for $985 a month. So that's probably my biggest like home run deal out of all of them. Was
it pretty rent ready or did you have to do a good bit of work on it? The roof was new. The water heater was new. The furnace was new-ish. So it was a lot of cosmetic work. Like it needed some drywall work done. It
it had been a rental prior to when we bought it, and so it was just severely neglected. Like the cabinets were covered with like a thick layer of grease, and I don't know if the people like made candy in their spare time, but there was like the spattering of like colorful like runny dots on everything. Like I don't know if they have like a candy factory. I don't know if they're making like edibles. Like I don't know. It is in Michigan. Like I'm not here to like judge you on what the heck you're making in your kitchen, but there was like splattering of like green and pink like colors everywhere in the kitchen. So it was more just like degreasing and cleaning out everything. And then we did a little bit of work, like change out like doorknobs that were really old. Like they must have had a dog and it chewed on all the doorknobs. And so they were like spiky and pointy. So when you turned them, it like hurt your hand because the dog used them as a chew toy. Like I have no idea. But, and then the bathroom was floor to ceiling pink, and we actually epoxied the whole bathroom. It was like every single wall was tile, and I epoxied the whole thing myself. So that is, I bought it off of Amazon. It sounded great, and I about fumigated myself. Like they were really serious when they say like fumes are prominent and you should open windows. Like I started driving afterwards, and I was like, I should not be driving. And I stopped at like a McDonald's parking lot and just like sat there and like breathed fresh air for a little bit. So they really
you're
mean
handier
it.
than you're making yourself out to be, Sarah. You're saying you weren't handy. You're epoxied a whole bathroom.
Yeah.
So it sounded like it was only a couple grand, though, maybe, if that, in rental costs?
I think it ended up being like maybe $5. Like it was not very much, like $3 to $5. We ended up doing like some random things that I don't think we needed to be doing in there. But I like repainted all the kitchen cabinets, epoxied the bathroom, and we had all the walls painted. But they were just, it was like avocado green with like a light pink bathroom. So it needed it head to like floor to ceiling. So lots of
It's always
work.
amazing the decisions that people make somewhere in the past.
Yeah. New appliances, that was the other thing, because they were really old and outdated and like missing like knobs and stuff. So that was probably the biggest cost of the like 5,000-ish we put in, was a new fridge, new gas stove. So
well, I don't have the capacity or mental wherewithal to do a cap rate, but
I can probably
using the numbers, it's like what, 985 over like 73 or something?
Yeah.
What is that, like 1.3 something percent rule?
Yeah.
If we're using the 1% rule, because that's a lot easier math than
it's like
calculating a cap rate.
Exactly. I think it was a 10 or 11 cap rate, and then I don't know what my cash on cash return is, but I know it cash flowed like almost $400 a month after everything. So, which like Michigan's taxes are really expensive, so that kind of cut into like how awesome it'd be if I bought the same house in Indiana. It would have been a little bit better. So, yeah. Very
Still
cool.
a good
So that
deal.
was kind of my good, like I aimed for like $200 cash flow a door, so that was a good one, especially since we, financed it with essentially putting very little money into it. So we were happy in the end of the day. So that's probably my best purchase. The rest have all been off the MLS. So those are my 2 Facebook buys. So don't like sleep on Facebook Marketplace having great real estate deals.
Gotta say, I don't think we've had one person recommend Facebook Marketplace that we've had on of the dozens of real estate guests. So we'll definitely point people toward that resource.
There you go. It's not quite as good as it used to be, but if you can find them on there. But I always I'm not trying to do like 10 deals a month. I'm trying to do like 3 or 4 a year. And so, keep an eye on it and see what it's going on. Like I literally keep Facebook around for like my grandma and my mom and real estate deals. So just check it every once in a while, see what's for sale. So, yeah.
There's one thing I have to bring up, just because only people in the FI space, the real estate space, will understand, and it's super ironic, but only if you're in this space. Sarah, you met Paula Pant with no pants
I
on.
literally did. I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I'm like, this is a great conversation starter. Yeah, so it was funny. So my whole goal of FinCon was just to meet all these amazing people I know online, and we've networked over the years and talked about deals and fire and kind of our goals and aspirations. And so Paul and I have always connected because I feel like our goals were kind of similar. She's obviously significantly more frugal than I am and lives like a significantly more nomadic lifestyle, but goal-wise, it was always really similar, where it was refreshing to me to read her content because she didn't want a million rental properties. She wanted, a reasonable amount to get her the lifestyle she wanted. And that was kind of more up my alley because I'm not chasing door count. I'm chasing like life freedom. And so that was just not something I ever wanted to do. And I feel like she was one of the few people in the space that was like preaching the small and mighty portfolio. And I'm like, this girl knows what she's talking about. Let's chat. And so we'd been talking like on and off, like here and there a little bit. And so we had never met before. And so we were at FinCon this year, and I was really bummed. Like, it was my last day there. We were about to leave on an airplane, and I hadn't met her yet. I'm like, I literally told the girl I was staying with, I'm like, oh, my only person I didn't meet that I really wanted to is Paula Pant. And we saw her when she was running to go MC like the whole event, and we missed her. And so I was just like really bummed because I didn't want to hold her up because I'm also perpetually late, and apparently Paula is also perpetually late. So I feel like she's kind of my spirit animal. And so I was at the pool with my like roomies, and I was running downstairs to meet a couple other girls that were at the conference. So Sarah Weaver and who else was I meeting? Anyway, ran down the elevator, and I just like threw a t-shirt on and it was ironically like an VTSAX and chill shirt. Like I was going to wear it to the conference, but I never did. So I was like ironically wearing like a pretty decent financial shirt. And then I was like, I'm just going to forget pants because I kind of got wet sitting by the pool. And I'm like, I'm just going to run downstairs. All I have to do is like let them on the elevator. I figured they'd be ready, but no, they're like down the lobby talking to people. So like have to walk through the lobby. I'm like super awkward. And of course, like the one and only time I get to meet Paula Pant, and Sarah's like, you have to go say hi to her. I'm like, this is so embarrassing. You have no idea. Like, why of all days did I choose to like, all my stuff is packed in a suitcase because I'm ready to get on a plane and my pants are wet. And so I'm just like in a bathing suit meeting Paula Pant, who's like my like hero in life. And so, yeah, I was like, hi, my name is Sarah and I have no pants because I'm really awkward. So it was a good memory. I think we'll remember each other. I'm like, well, you probably met a ton of people during, this whole FinCon experience. Did you meet anyone else without pants on? I feel like this is memorable. You're welcome. So it was a pretty fun meeting, and we posted a lot about it, and it was kind of fantastic. So I actually feel like it couldn't have gone any better. One of the things, like one of my mentors at my previous job said, like, always be known for something. Like, I don't really want to be known for like something terrible, but obviously like, you're the girl without pants, like that. Like, she'll remember me if we ever see each other again. So nailed it. Maybe
Might
she
not
won't
be the move
recognize
for
me.
every person you meet, but it's a great way to meet Paula Pam. That's definitely one you won't forget.
Right. Yeah. So it was fantastic. I was extremely mortified because it's super not me. Like, I feel like I dress like a nun most of the time. So like a somewhat scandalous bathing suit was not really what I hoped for. So.
Well, the one that we haven't talked about that I just want to see, like, maybe you've got some advice for people in that same boat, because we don't have a lot of guests on who are a single mom. And so just curious for people who are in that same position, or maybe even talking about like how it's changed the way you imagine things will go from here on out, or maybe even just like preparing for the future, because you never know when you might become a single mom or single parent.
Yeah. So I think like a year and a half ago, so it's like, it was 2019. So about September of 2019, my whole like world flipped. And so didn't expect to become a single mom. Didn't think I was ever going to be divorced, but here we are. And so, it changes your perspective a lot. I feel like I've become like a better person through it. Like I'm just calmer. I roll with things a lot better. I think don't recommend it, but it's been pretty good in the end. But it's really hard, and it makes you be really mindful about how you build out your systems, because there's so much you can't do when you have a toddler full time with you. And so my daughter is 2.5 or almost 2.5. And so it changes how much you can go work on rentals. Like I can't just like, I'm going to put you to bed and go like run a half hour away and go work on a rental property. Like I can't just like leave her and go do stuff. Like you have to, even if she's sleeping, you need to be home. And like, there's just a whole different level of coordination with like babysitters. And so it made me develop better systems. It made me be more mindful about like money as well, and just like saving a bit more, which I'm doing a terrible job at, because every time I save up money, I throw it back into real estate. So I'm a terrible saver. But it goes into a good place, I think. Like at least I'm investing it. But I think it really changes that, and it grounds you, because I think it's amazing having kids, because they're just such a little beacon of light and so happy, and just like seeing everything through their eyes. Like everything's more fun, like holidays and Christmas and Thanksgiving. Like it's just so much fun with littles. But it is a lot of work when you're trying to like build a business. And so I think you do have to prioritize and be like more mindful of your time. Like I really put myself on a strict like wake up, go to bed schedule. And I had to almost give myself like me a bedtime as well, because I'm a night owl and I'll just stay up and not sleep. And you can't just like not sleep for days and like have a full-time job and do all this stuff where your brain just like melts. So I think it makes you build different systems. And then also keep in mind, like for me, I don't like to do a lot of partnerships, because I've seen a partnership go really wrong. And so I guess if people ever have questions about why not to do a partnership, I have a good track record of saying like, when you're you know, your partner in crime suddenly is unavailable and kind of like ghosts like life in a way, and just like isn't showing up on the job and isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and kind of goes rogue, and you're stuck with like rentals and managing them all on your own. It's hard, and you just have to figure that out. So I'm always like very leery of partnerships and how they're structured now. So I guess I'm always like the critic in the audience being like, how do you really feel about partnerships? Because you just really never know. But again, like, you don't know anything in life. Like, no day is ever guaranteed, so you can't always live in fear. So I'm hoping to get away from my fear of partnerships, because I'm like, anything in life could go wrong. Like, I could be disabled tomorrow. Like, there's so many different things that come up and you just don't expect it. You could develop a medical condition. Like, there's just things happen and life happens. So I think just adapting and trying to figure out like how you can do the business anyway, if it's like what you're passionate about. So yeah.
Awesome.
It was a really long,
you definitely have a lot to
answer.
share. Yeah. Hey, the more the merrier. We that's why we like doing this. But you definitely have a lot to share. You have a ton of experience in a ton of different arenas, from single mom to partnerships to real estate to index funds to going from Ramsey to Fire. And I know you've just been posting a ton of content on Instagram. You've been rebranding your site. You've been on TikTok. Where are some of the best places, just handles, websites that people can connect with you?
By far on Instagram. Instagram is like my love in life. So Nerd's Guide to Fi, or FI. And then my website's under the same name. So links in my Instagram bio if you want to start there. I'm on Facebook, but I really never check it. I think I push all my podcasts out to Facebook also when they go live. So I do have a podcast under the same name. So I kind of branded everything the same name to keep it simple. Also, the whole not being creative thing is real. So like the most creative thing about what I'm doing is my name. And then I just use that for everything. So but I'm not on Twitter. I just got a TikTok. I'm neglecting it a lot, but they say it's easier to make TikToks and push to Instagram than make reels on Instagram and push to TikTok. So, but I'm so used to Instagram that like making reels is so much easier. So I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen with the TikTok, but I hear that's where I should be going. That's what all the people at FinCon are saying, but I feel like that's like an elder millennial thing, is like, no, I just like Instagram. Don't like make me do more platforms. So we'll see what happens with TikTok, but I do think it's a really cool space. I spend an exorbitant amount of time just like perusing it. So yeah.
Sarah, we're excited to see where you take that, and we're so glad that you came on and gave us a little bit of your time and gave us your full background. I think we covered a ton in this episode, and we think our listeners are really going to enjoy it. So thanks you for coming on the show. Yeah.
And if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram. I answer all of them. If you send me a really long DM, it might be weeks before I answer you, but I will answer you. There's just like a few in queue right now that I'm like, man, I really need to answer this guy back, but that's going to take like brain power. So I will get back with you at some point. And if I forget, just like poke me again.